Hi, I'm Patty Mamola, chair of this year's Global Marathon and part of the team to present Filling Your Confidence Gap. I'm an engineer and have had a variety of jobs, job experiences, and leadership positions. But having the confidence to lead didn't come easily. I want to share with you just a brief little story. When I was a young engineer coming up through the ranks, often I'd be in a meeting with a room full of men, and I would be afraid to say a word. In fact, the words inside my head would say, don't say anything. They're going to think you're dumb. They're going to think you're stupid. Don't say anything. It took quite a while for me to gain the courage to speak. And when I found the courage to speak so that I could be heard. So projecting your confidence is important to your career. You have lots to share. You have diverse opinions, ideas, thoughts, experiences. And that's what engineering is about, is that diversity and experiences in what can be created. That's what you bring to the table. We have excellent speakers and facilitators for discussion with you. Leslie Shoemaker comes to us from Ireland, where she created an initiative to provide female engineering and computer science students with female industry-based role models. Karen Purcell owns an engineering firm and authored a book, Unlocking Your Brilliance, Smart Strategies for Women to Thrive in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Let's get started so you can learn how to fill your confidence gap. Then get ready to ask your questions. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Leslie Shoemaker. I'm here as part of the Building Confidence segment for Global Marathon. In particular, I would like to talk to you about the imposter syndrome. And the reason I've chosen this is because how prevalent it is with women worldwide. During our chat today, I'd like to talk to you about what it is, how it comes about, how it might show itself, but also more importantly, steps that we can take and how to manage it, hopefully a little bit more effectively. I think this slide says so much for so many of us. I think everybody who is watching this will be able to identify with this, and probably more than we care to imagine. And for me, when you have somebody of this caliber who says that she feels like a phony and a fraud, despite the fact of her amazing successes and the inspiration that she's been for so many people, and that she feels like a phony and a fraud, and that she's going to be eventually found out, I think really captures how prevalent this is and how it can occur at any stage of anybody's career. So what is the imposter syndrome? This is something that was identified in 1978 by two psychologists through their clinical work with women in their practice. And I think the statement here, the imposter syndrome, describes the secret feelings of personal inadequacy and authentically talented and high-achieving people. Really captures so much of what this is about. So for women who are experiencing the imposter syndrome, it is about saying, I'm a fake, I'm a phony, I'm a fraud, and unfortunately they're going to find me out. And so rather than take center stage and say, hey, I'm doing a great job here, this is my project, I've achieved this, we would rather be in the background or behind the stage and attributing our successes to things like luck or to the team, rather than standing up and saying, myself. So how does the imposter syndrome manifest itself in the internal world of individuals? Obviously, it's going to be quite unique depending upon the person. It's going to be things like worry, self-doubt, that constant conveyor belt of self-criticism that can occur. For some individuals, it may be irritability or even anxiety. And for others, it could be a low mood. And unfortunately, there will be others who will cross the line and move into depression. So what is the observable impact? We as women, we're terrible about asking for pay raises and finding out what our worth is within a company. In addition to that, because of that worry that somehow we're going to be found out, that we're not what people think we are, we tend to work a lot of extra hours, a lot of long hours, which unfortunately can lead to burnout. And then, of course, because we're terrible about putting ourselves forward when we're experiencing the imposter syndrome, we do not put ourselves forward for those promotions, which unfortunately links back into that money element as well. So how does the imposter syndrome come about? There are three factors I chose based on research. We have family, we have the toys, which are predominantly played with by young girls, as well as our education. And unfortunately, recent research has shown that the difficulties with education do continue not only in our early years, but up through our college years. So the research shows that we get messages such as STEM subjects are for a boy's brain. Or for another example, it's that these subjects might be just a little bit too challenging, and perhaps we should think about other subjects like business. And then, of course, there are the toys, which are marketed to young girls, which unfortunately are communicating, rather than looking at solving the world's problems and playing with things like Lego and different toys like that and scientist kits. Girls are told it's okay to play with dolls and to think about fashion and jewelry and playing house instead of solving the world's problems. For myself as a psychologist, something I've noticed, not just in myself, but with a lot of women I've worked with, is I think we hold our value system a little bit too closely to our hearts. What I mean is honesty and integrity is what comes to mind. For example, if a job promotion comes out and they ask us to have all 10 criteria in order to apply, unfortunately for us women, because of our integrity, because of our honesty, and because we're worried that we're going to be found out as a fraud, if we only have 8 or 9 of those criteria, we say, no, we can't apply. Whereas, as research has shown, for men, they might have 6 or 7 of the criteria, and what they do is apply and oftentimes get the job. And it's not because they're dishonest, but just because they're a little bit more into the risk-taking than us women. Then it brings us to this wonderful segment about what can we do about it? How can we manage our imposter syndrome? Because it's not going away. Unfortunately, for most of us, we're stuck here on the first area of the struggle, which I represent with a tug of war. A tug of war with our value system, our thoughts, our feelings, and our experiences. And what I'm going to suggest may seem rather radical and perhaps counterintuitive, but I'm suggesting that we need to embrace our imposter syndrome and develop a different relationship with it. In addition to this, this means that accepting that we're going to get these thoughts. We're going to get these thoughts about feeling like that we are a fraud, that we are going to be found out. And we're also going to get these uncomfortable feelings. And somewhere in society, we've been taught through a variety of mediums that if we have difficult thoughts or not so fun feelings, that we should do things to try and change them or avoid them. But the reality is, we can't. We need to go and we need to embrace these things. And we need to develop that different relationship with them. Also, our actions. We need to stop avoiding things. Because when we avoid things, we don't get the opportunity to grow. We don't get the opportunity to find out that the worst case scenario didn't happen. And more importantly, even if it did happen, that we survived and we were able to find our way successfully through this. For myself, the word fear stands for face everything and remain, because that is where the most personal growth often happens. So what can we do about it? On a practical level, start talking about it. Talk to your female companions at work and friends in other companies. Start getting support through that. Start normalizing the experience. Get tips and techniques through them, things that have worked for them. The other thing you can do is sign up for courses. If there's a particular skill set that you think that you need, like perhaps around change management or leadership, go, educate yourself, develop the skill set through that. And of course, I'm quite passionate about mentoring, because this is where you're taking the knowledge, the experience, and the insights from somebody who's just a bit further down the career path than yourself. And by speaking to this person, you can gain so many forms of support and tips and techniques again, that in time, as you progress down your career path, you too will be able to give back to somebody else when you become a mentor. Also, what else can you do about it? What I've done is I've broken our lives down into 4 quadrants. At the top, we have hobbies and leisure activities. Underneath that, we have education, and we also have work. Then we have relationships and our health. And what I suggest doing is taking that honest and fearless assessment of your life and look at your life and see what's working, what isn't working. Ask yourself, is this the person I want to be in this area of my life? Am I behaving in accordance with my values? Am I proud of what I'm doing? Start to identify areas that you can make small, manageable changes, measurable changes, so that when you go back and you look at these things in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, you can see if they're working. If they're not, go back to the drawing board. Perhaps you took on a task that was just simply too big. I think we're all guilty of that at some time or another. Break it down into smaller tasks. Go back and start all over again. There is no thing as failure in this. It's all part of that learning curve. It's all part of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. So really, about summing up today, wrapping up, it's realizing you're not alone. It's okay. You're part of a very large group of people. More importantly, embrace your imposter syndrome. Accept it. Develop that peace treaty with it. When I say acceptance, I don't mean that you have to like it, but that you have to learn to acknowledge it's going to be part of your life, and it's going to come and it's going to go, but to not give it the power that you've been giving it to in the past. Also, face everything and remain. So when you feel fear, take that task head on and stick with it and persevere. Through those experiences is when you are really going to grow as a human being and develop the skills. Finally, look at your life in the 4 quadrants that I've suggested, and look at where you can make those small, manageable, and attainable changes that you can measure and see where you're going to take your life in its next direction. I wish you all the best of success in this, and thank you for your time.
No matter where you are in your career, whether finishing school and preparing your resume, moving from your first job to a higher level position, or a more lucrative management opportunity, females like us in a male-dominated field often report that it is difficult to maintain our confidence. For women looking to advance in their careers, confidence is among the key vehicles we need to get us where we are striving to go. It seems so simple, yet it's so important. Now, I can tell you, there have been countless times I have temporarily lost my confidence along my career path. It can be easy to let our confidence slip when we are attempting to stand out in a field that was built by and still run by our male counterparts. Without confidence, we can find ourselves contemplating leaving our jobs, or more drastically, leaving the STEM fields altogether. And for women, it happens more often than one might think. While some level of confidence resides in our DNA, working on actively building and maintaining confidence is imperative to thriving in the STEM workforce. We may find that the confidence we develop during our schooling is easily squashed when in a work environment. Identifying confidence builders can be difficult. So to help us, I like to share a few strategies that have really helped me maintain my confidence throughout challenging times in my career. The first strategy that I recommend is to find your tribe. I'm able to strengthen my confidence by surrounding myself with people who believe in me. It's been said that success is proportional, at least in part, to the number of successful people you interact with. I think it's true. Wherever you may live, I can tell you that you'll find strength in numbers, in other supportive people, and in the group dynamic you share. There is great synergy when you find your tribe. It's worked well for me. When I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO, in 2006, I was exposed to an extraordinary group of talented business owners. I was searching for a supportive group and was pleased to find that at every chapter level, local, regional, or national, the positive environment was contagious. Although the group is not engineering specific, I cannot put a price on the tips and best practices I have learned and incorporated into my own line of work. Each and every EO member is open to helping with any challenges I may be experiencing. They listen, they support me, and they share great ideas. The backing from EO members has helped me overcome major hurdles in my personal life, as well as some of the most difficult situations I've encountered in the working world. For example, the reason I had the confidence to move forward with my book was because of my work with my group at EO. The question was, how can I make more of an impact on the engineering community for women? My support team helped give me the clarity of mind and determination to answer that question. Not only was the book something I wanted to do, but it was something I felt I had to do. So EO has been a very powerful force in my life. The assistance that can be found within an enduring peer group is irreplaceable. EO works for me, but it took effort on my part to find a group that was the right fit. Surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who have similar goals can help build your confidence exponentially. You have a chance to prove yourself within the security of a group of like-minded peers. This can translate outside of the group when you are working to prove yourself as credible to your client, partners, and superiors. So to reiterate, find your tribe. It might change your life in amazing ways. A second strategy is to engage in extracurricular activities. At times, our lives get so busy with work that we forget to have fun and we forget there's more to life. Just as your tribe is great for your confidence, activities outside the realm of work are profound benefit to your well-being and your confidence too. Sometimes we need to challenge ourselves in new ways and in ways that lie beyond our comfort zones. Outside of business-related peer groups, there are countless opportunities to find the support needed to strengthen our confidence. We just have to find an option that works with our preferences and busy schedules. I've been running for about 13 years, and I adopted a running regimen because it allowed me to challenge myself. I discovered that running helps me think clearly. Running provides me the time I can have to myself early in the morning to work through any problems that are pressing. When weather permits, I run outside, and the open air allows me to reflect on the complications within my business and how to address them. The struggles of work can be overwhelming. If we clearly identify our problems, we can tackle them one at a time and see how correcting them fits into the bigger picture. I find it vital to spend my downtime partaking in activities I enjoy. While it's important to separate work life from my personal time, running allows me to mentally work through the obstacles that I am experiencing on both sides and gives me great confidence too. Plus, every time I cross the finish line, my level of confidence increases. A third strategy to help build confidence is to meet mentors regularly. One of the most important confidence builders can be found day to day on the job in the form of a mentor. Teaming with a mentor is a career strategy that can bring huge benefits, especially to women in unbalanced work environments like engineering. The majority of successful women, time and time again, credit their participation to some sort of mentorship for dramatically helping them reach their career goals. For me, Tom Kroeb was not only my last boss before I launched PK Electrical, but he was also a powerful mentor. Now, as a boss, he was as intimidating as they come. He was fair but stern. He pushed me as hard as I would go, and I was frightened of disappointing him. It took time to gain his trust, and there was no way for his employees to earn his trust besides proving themselves through hard work. Outside of asking a lot of questions, I kept to myself and worked as hard as I could. It turned out that I was the only female engineer Tom ever hired. I felt like I had to show him that he made the right decision by hiring me, and it worked. While Tom pushed me, I always had his ear, and he was a terrific mentor to me. He helped get me to where I am today, and I'm thankful from both a personal and professional standpoint that I had him in my life, and I still do today. Apart from your tribe, extracurricular activities, and finding a mentor, there is another important confidence builder not to be overlooked: your family. They are the fourth and final strategy I like to mention today. My two daughters, Alyssa and Sydney, and my husband, Jeff, are all terrific motivators. They remind me why I work so hard, and they remind me of what matters most in terms of my happiness. Coming from a first marriage that was unhealthy and unsupportive, I greatly appreciate the strength that my family offers. Having a supportive family like them, whether it is made up of your spouse or partner, kids, your parents, grandparents, your closest friends, or all the above, makes your working life much, much easier. When you have people in your life who take interest in your accomplishments and provide encouragement, it really makes all the difference in the world. Show your family support and encouragement and let them know how much their support means to you. Fostering an environment within your family creates an everlasting source of energy, confidence, and well-being. On the other hand, people who criticize you for following your passion are counterproductive to your goals. Avoid them like the plague. It does not take long for negativity and criticisms to become personal, which will hurt your confidence and place unwanted weight on your shoulders. Life throws enough challenges your way without someone close to you belittling you. So stay focused on positive and supportive relationships. To wrap up, maintaining our confidence throughout our career is crucial to our success. When our confidence falls short for whatever reason, it has an impact on our focus and our productivity. Our confidence is continually threatened as our career progresses. Finding support, even in the mid and late stages of our careers, is incredibly important. New responsibility brings about new challenges, and we have to be confident that we have the abilities to reach our full potential. So no matter what, be sure you have 4 things. Find your tribe, have time for fun activities, have a great mentor, and finally, a supportive environment at home. Thank you.
Hi, good day. And Leslie and Karen, thank you for your words of wisdom. It's great to be here, hear you and chat with you a bit. We do have a few questions who have come in through the chat bar, so I'd like to get started. The first question is for you, Leslie, and it asks, could you provide an example or 2 of some small changes that you recommend one build their confidence and to overcome the imposter syndrome? Is there something you would suggest they do to start out? Leslie?
One thing I would suggest is to educate yourself on it and then start making practical plans. For example, one thing that I did when I went to my workplace was I started asking 1 question per meeting. And after that, I started asking more questions. So believe it or not, just that very act of allowing yourself to ask a question can really, really help start embracing your imposter syndrome.
So it sounds like just giving yourself permission to take that first step is almost a first step in itself. Would you agree?
I would agree, but also recognize that you are going to be worried. You are going to have self-doubt. You're probably going to be a little bit afraid. That's okay. Just go. Nike, in my opinion, has the best slogan in the world. Just do it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Leslie. Karen, there was a question for you. How did you approach folks who you wanted to be in your tribe? Let's say you decided these are the skills I'm looking to learn. How did you go about then asking people to help you get to those skills?
It was really a matter of just kind of getting out there and talking to people and seeing what what they do and how they've been successful. So it was really a matter, like, I really kind of put myself out there from being shy, got out of my comfort zone a little bit, and just talked to people and got to know them a little bit better. Thank you.
Great. And once you got to know people, did you find that they were pretty much willing to support you, or how did the process work? Was it a regularly scheduled meetup with them? Is it just ad hoc?
Yeah, it was. I have found that most people are more than willing to help, and they like to share their experiences. And so then with my tribe, it really became like meeting, and where we would just share experiences, and we broke into smaller groups, and or another type of business owner, it just having that peer group just really helped tremendously and helped everyone within the peer group.
Great. And Roseanne, I was curious, so you've heard a little bit from Leslie and a little bit from Karen. Was there any element of what they've shared today that struck you as something that you want to try now that you've heard this idea?
Definitely, and Leslie has a great mentoring group in the Technical University of Dublin, so maybe she might give me the opportunity to try that out with some of her students. And I mean, Engineers Week is happening right now in Ireland, so it's a great opportunity for me to go out there and practice my communication skills and just get out there and practice on a younger audience and build myself up then to talking to more senior colleagues. And International Women's Day, that's coming up on Friday, so that's another opportunity to get out there to your local school or library. That from my experience, lots of people, they really want to have you in and chatting about your work and what you do in your day-to-day career, and they just want to see role models. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to get out there.
Great, thank you. And this is a question actually it will be good for all three of you. So I'll start with Karen. Do you have any tips for being assertive and confident without the negative connotations that come with it? Usually you hear this, women, when they are assertive, they're being argumentative or combative, but how do you go about doing it without maybe worrying about that?
Yeah, so I guess I go back to, I rely on some of my other confidence builders, such as my running or my family, my mentor. And I, practice a little bit on my family or with my mentor. And then really, I am myself. I am who I am. And I try to be very respectful of the person that I'm speaking to, at the same time while getting my question or opinion heard, but I'm always very respectful of other people. And I think that, that's really important. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Leslie, do you want to tackle the same question? How do you go about balancing the assertive with the confidence?
It just happened to me, actually, where a male colleague essentially was going to sweep in and rescue me and save the day. And I just stood my ground, and I used an assertive technique called broken record. And I just kept repeating my theme that I had with him over and over again. But I also used evidence to demonstrate that I was more than competent to do the task which had been set for me. And more importantly, that I didn't need rescuing.
That's good. Yeah, I like the concept of broken record. Sometimes repetition is really the key to re-emphasizing something you've said. And as you said, stating your ground. Roseanne, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I guess with myself, I always just try to make sure I listen to the other person, because I do talk quite a lot, so I probably have a habit of jumping in. But just try to listen and be respectful, and just make sure that I'm specific with what I'm trying to get across.
Yep. Yeah, those are all good strategies. So I'm curious, as you guys have stated, stating your ground, holding to what's true, how did you find that first step of confidence to enable you to do that? Is there something that you did? I know, Karen, you mentioned just your extracurricular activities helped. Is there something that just prompted you to go in that direction first? Like, what made you think I need to do this?
Well, it's interesting. I had found my tribe. I had joined EO, and it was actually some of my male counterparts that said to me, Karen, you know, you should really write a book, and you know, you've been so successful. And I was really humbled by that and taken back by that, because I find it very difficult to call myself, I think as women do, call myself successful in the same sentence, you know, with my name. And so I think one thing that really helped me was just having that support from others and hearing that from my counterparts within EO. I just think, you know, and a mentor can do the same thing, and, you know, as can your family, and so, or friends. And so I think just really listening to other people and getting the support from them.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Is there something specific you would mention, Leslie, that made you take the first step?
I was just thinking about that, and I think it was my father. I was very lucky. My dad had 2 daughters, and he taught us that we could be anything that we wanted to be, and as long as it didn't involve maths. My family is not very adept at that area, but he really believed in us. He encouraged my sister and I to take risks. And then when I joined our engineering department as a woman, American, and psychologist, I don't think I could be any more of an outlier. And I was really, really blessed that I had 3 senior managers, all men, who really mentored me, inspired me, encouraged me to take risks. And as I affectionately joke, let me run amok when I finally found my stride.
No, that's great. And all of you have mentioned the importance of mentors, you know, whether it's in the tribe or whether it's a one-on-one mentor, how that person. But what are some of the characteristics you look for in a mentor? How do you decide this is who I should ask to mentor me or want to get advice from? Let's start with Leslie.
I think finding somebody that you gel with, that you click with. I don't think it's something that you can quantify. I think it's something you instinctually know. I know that I had a situation within my workplace where they provided me with a mentor, a really, really nice guy. I like him a lot, but we just didn't click. Whereas the next mentor I had, as the Irish phrase goes, we get on like a house on fire. We have a very similar value system, similar outlook in life. He's somebody that I trust and I really rely on. And what's been wonderful is a lot of women as well have been, you know, part of this little network that I've been developing over a number of years. And they've just been quite inspirational. There's one particular woman who's a senior manager who's just been really had my back, and I've known she's had my back. And I know that no question is a stupid question. And I value that.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Karen? What do you look for in a mentor? What are some qualities?
You know, it's funny when I first met my mentor, Tom Krob, who I mentioned previously, I didn't realize that he was my mentor. It probably was maybe like 5, 6 or so years down the road that I realized that he was my mentor. But I think ultimately I have to agree with what Leslie said. You know, someone that has the same values, that is going to be very supportive of you and encouraging of you. So now I try to be a mentor to some of my staff, and I try to be very supportive, kind of lead them in the right direction, encourage them along the way. So I think, you know, it's those types of characteristics that are really important with the mentor.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment that you didn't even know Tom was your mentor for many, many years, because sometimes that's very true. You have somebody who is supporting you or providing advice, or you're going to with questions, but you're not even considering them in this particular kind of relationship. Roseanne, I'm curious, is there a mentor that you have and maybe some advice that you've received that you'd like to share with the team?
A mentor I've had. A mentor I've had, like the ladies, I look for somebody who I get on with and had a good relationship, and colleagues of mine, I guess, who are aiming for the best, and in their work they're they're really positive and enthusiastic about their work, and that's what I'm aiming for in my own work as well. So feedback from my mentor. I guess I've got, I think if you sit down with a mentor on, whether it's weekly or monthly or whatever, you'll always get good tips or tricks from your mentor. And it's good because if you have
absolutely.
a problem,
There's always...
it's good to be able to sit down with them.
Yes, definitely. Well, we have a little more serious question that just came in, so we'll start with Karen. Have you had to face bias at work, and how did you handle it, or how would you recommend somebody handle bias when they faced it head on?
Yes, I have faced bias, and I think that I'll tell you a quick story. I was out at a job site with a very young engineer, and I had a contractor actually, he was talking more towards my young engineer and not me, the licensed professional engineer, because he was a male. And I just find sometimes that, even that a lot of bias within the engineering community. And so what I usually do, one, I just breathe. And two, I have and know that I have the experience and the expertise, that I know what I'm doing, and I have all my confidence builders behind me. And so I just, stand tall, I stand proud, and I, speak up when it's appropriate. And so I think that you just have to really remember all of those things. And eventually we can get that bias turned around.
Yeah. How about you, Leslie? Is there any guidance you would provide for combating bias or reacting to it?
I try and keep my cool as best as possible. But the other thing is I often let my actions speak louder than my words. And sometimes I have to wait a while for the evidence to show itself. And I'm smiling because as I'm sitting here in Engineers Ireland, they've done a number of reviews of our programs, and I always get regular praise. And it's been through these experiences where I've noticed that a number of my male colleagues now look at me differently. They come to me, they ask me a number of questions, and my input is valued, even though it's slightly different. And I do approach the work environment differently. They now see a place for what I do. But unfortunately, unconscious bias is something that's going to be here for a while. And I do believe that we need to bring in more education into the workplaces, and we need to discuss it a lot more.
Yes, there's definitely been a shift from this sense of having combated overt bias, I think, through education, through awareness within workplaces and organizations. But now we're dealing with a lot more subtle of a challenge, and that people don't even realize some of the biases they have, where they may think just simply because you are female that there are certain roles that you just might not be interested in, that just is not something they would consider. They're not trained to or not used to it. And I'm curious, do you guys find that if you do focus on success and confidence and the positive, if it helps you, or is there some merit to looking at this and breaking down the problem, or is it really something you should not maybe dwell too long on? Let's go to Leslie with that.
When I started my mentoring program 2 years ago, I hadn't an idea of what I was doing. I had an idea and I knew I wanted to do it. And I just kept taking it one step at a time, asking for lots and lots of help. Roseanne in particular has helped me enormously, and going with it. But also knowing that there were going to be occasions in which I did not feel confident in myself and my abilities, and just bearing with it. And as I mentioned earlier, leaning into that fear, leaning into that discomfort and accepting it, because it's not going to go away. As a psychologist, the one thing I safely assure you is when we try and avoid emotional experiences or even difficult thoughts, that's what gets us into trouble. Whereas if we realize this is normal, it's natural, it's part of the learning process, I think that helps, at least for me, make it a lot more okay.
Yeah, definitely. And Karen, do you have any comments that you'd like to add on to that?
I agree with what Leslie just said, and I think that the bias, is out there, and I acknowledge it and address it where appropriate. And I think, however, we cannot let that deter us or get us down. That we need to continue on and make the STEM careers a great place for women to thrive in.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. One of the things, Leslie, you mentioned, and Karen, you touched on it as well, but Leslie had a nice phrase for it: fears, face everything and remain. And this concept of doing something even though it seems like you're not confident about it, you're fearful of it. I'm curious, is there an example of some action you took when you were in a situation that you were quite fearful? Maybe if you could share a story of an example situation and what you did in that situation. Let's start with Leslie.
The very first mentoring event I had was for around 80 people. I have no experience in event management. I had major companies coming in from Ireland. They're international companies, Schneider Electric and Arup. A number of students coming in. We had the media there. And I just kept reminding myself it was okay. I was going to figure it out. And I reminded myself that I always figure it out, even when it doesn't go quite according to plan.
Yeah, that's definitely true, that there is no sense of quite according to plan, because plans have to be flexible and malleable as you work through situations. Roseanne, I'm curious, do you have an example you'd like to share?
I can't think of anything.
That's all right. How about we go to Karen, and then we'll come back to you if you have thought of something after Karen.
So back in 2010, 2011, I was elected as president of our local entrepreneurs organization chapter. And so here I was amongst maybe 40 business owners, first female president in our chapter. And so getting up and speaking in front of them for the very first time, especially as the first female president, I was very fearful. So really what I did is I just took a breath and I went forward, and it worked out great. And so it was just a matter of facing those fears and just, getting through it and moving on.
Yeah, both of you have shared some great successes. And I've heard mentioned to me before that instead of keeping, a gratitude journal, that maybe sometimes to consider keeping a success journal. And I did try that once, where I would try to capture successes. As Roseanne sort of said, I can't think of anything. The first day, or maybe even probably the first week, I have to admit, I'm thinking, what was I confident enough about that I did? And it was really hard to find for myself a success. And I think maybe this goes a little bit with what we've talked about today, imposter syndrome, and not feeling. And I think, Karen, you said that you had a hard time connecting Karen and success in the same sentence, and it was a bit of a challenge to think that they went together. So I'm curious, have either of you or any of you kept a success journal? And if not, then is there a success that you'd like to share that you're particularly proud of? Let's start with Karen.
I have not kept a success journal. I think it's a really good idea, though, so that when I'm asked for a success story, I'll have one right there, ready to go. I would say for me, when I wrote my book, that was completely new territory for me. As an engineer, I had never really written anything other than, reports or required papers in school, or, that kind of thing. And so writing this book was a huge step outside of. And I would say, to me, that was a success. And then really ultimately moving on from there and speaking at events such as this and speaking, all throughout the United States, as well as I also have spoken in China. I think that that to me is a success story from something that started way out of my comfort zone.
That sounds great. Leslie, do you have a success story you'd like to share with us?
I'm struggling with this whole thing about success, because I guess for me, success equals a goal. And I set goals and I meet goals and I enjoy doing that. I'm very goal oriented. But for me, success is just getting up in the morning, going to work, and being the best possible person I can be. It isn't always going to be something that's tangible at the end, where I win an award or I appear on TV or do something like that. Sometimes it's just knowing that I'm being the best person I possibly can be in the moment.
Actually a great point, and there is a comment made in the chat that ties a little bit to that, is that sometimes we think that we have to be successful as a certain definition or perfect. You can maybe equate it to that, but that's really not what it's about. As you said, it's being excellent and just the bettering yourself, better you, showing up every day and trying to meet those goals that you set for yourself. And if you don't meet them 100%, it's okay. At least you moved in a direction that was forward. And so moving in that direction. Roseanne, I'm curious if you have any comments on the concept of like perfection versus excellent, or if you have anything you'd like to share on that.
Perfection versus excellence. Well, I guess I would always aim for perfection with my work, but it doesn't always go to plan. Life happens. Even before we started here, had an IT problem and I didn't know if we were going to end up live at all. So perfection versus excellence, I don't know, just aim for both of them.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sometimes
another question came up.
It won't work and you just have to accept that.
Yeah, no, good point. Another question that just came up is, how does one go about feeling confident, especially in tense situations such as a performance review or where you're getting very direct and specific feedback? Is there a tip for how do you maintain that confidence during this time? Leslie, would you like to tackle that first?
Yeah, I would. First, I've just realized I want to give my definition of confidence. Confidence is a bit like the heart monitor. And the reality is it's not a flat line, because if it was a flat line, we'd be dead. And confidence is something that goes up and down and it has in-betweens. And I think we need to embrace that and accept that, because I think if we keep looking for excellence and perfection, I think we're setting ourselves up perhaps to set the goals up where the moon is and perhaps for failure. And for me, being in those tough situations, and I have been and I will be again, sometimes just the very fact that I'm sitting there, taking a deep breath and reminding myself to remain present and go with it, see what happens, and keep myself as open as possible to the experience is all I need to do. Even though inside I am my students, and it's be like a duck underneath.
Yeah, good point. Karen, any comments from you?
Yeah, I would say, again, I go into a situation and where that's pretty intense. I just have to breathe, accept the position that I'm in, and it is what it is. More than likely, I made it going to be, and so it is what it is, and just continue to just focus and move forward and breathe.
Breathe, focus, accept. All of those are really great ways to approach complicated situations. Somebody in the chat box recommended, if you are in that, maybe prepping yourself with some sales training so you understand how to both highlight your accomplishments and techniques as well as capabilities, but The sales techniques can also teach you how to handle objections and maybe have a strategy or a very fixed format for coming away with something. We have only about 10 more minutes, and I do want to hear from each of you on maybe a recommendation that you would give to somebody who's just joining this call and thinking, wait a minute, these women are so accomplished. I don't even know how to get to that first step in game, and they seem so confident. What advice would you give somebody who is in that situation? Is there something you would encourage them or some words of wisdom you have? Let's start with Karen this time.
I would say really a mentor. I found, my mentor was my mentor for a number of years. I think having that mentorship was very helpful in building my confidence, and then continue to allow yourself to learn and grow, take advantage of any opportunity that you are given to get out of your comfort zone and to learn something new. Find those extracurricular activities or a peer group that can really guide you and early on.
Great. Leslie, anything you would give as a word of advice or some comments?
One of my favorite books at the moment is by a particular Australian author by the name of Russ Harris, and it's called The Confidence Gap. And it's an easy to digest book. It gives you a lot of practical techniques, and I think it's very realistic. And it comes from a particular type of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's just about embracing, we're all humans, we're all trying to figure it out. We're just trying to put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of that, what all of you have described is simply just moving and progressing and not getting hung up about this, either that you didn't quite achieve 100% your goal or you came a little bit short, and having that good group around you to help encourage you. But how do you prevent yourself sort of getting stuck and continuing to make that progress so that you're not just stuck in comfort because you finally achieved a certain goal? Is there some advice of what to do when you feel like I'm just in too comfortable zone? What do you do? Leslie?
Embrace it while it's there and enjoy it. Sometimes I think we need to be, a bit like a plane and, circling the airport before we land, and that's okay. But I've worked hard over the years in creating a support group who are very willing to kick me in the shins when I need a bit of a move in a direction, if they see that I'm a little bit too complacent, or if, I'm behaving in a way that isn't congruent with my values. So support systems, I just think, are absolutely invaluable, because as human beings, we don't do well in isolation.
Yeah, definitely. Karen, anything for how do you move out of that comfort zone?
I would agree. I would, accept it and then realize that you need to maybe make new goals and strive for something that is also out of your comfort zone. And so that's what I would recommend.
Great. Roseanne, have you taken a step that pushed you out of your comfort zone? Is there an example that you would give that sort of challenged you?
Well, initially when I had to present to members of Engineers Ireland, that wasn't anything that I was very confident with at all. But my approach was just to, lock myself in a room and keep practicing and get people, and then, present maybe in front of other colleagues and get them to ask me questions. And now I don't mind it. That was just how I've approached it in the past.
Great, thank you. Some folks asked Leslie what the name of the book was, and I believe you had mentioned it was Confidence Gap, and the name of the author was Russ Harris. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, super. And I'm curious with maybe one final question. Is there a mentor you've had who's given you some advice that you'd like to share? For me, I think one of the things I've been challenged to think about is this difference between striving for perfection, which tends to be a bit discouraging, versus just reaching for the next step and trying to just small incremental improvements to get where you are. And I'm curious, is there something that a mentor has told you that you really has stuck with you and sort of made you take a different perspective of how you approach problems or situations, or just in general your goals that you've set? Leslie, would you like to give that a shot?
I'd have to give this to my father, and the two things he said were go for it and take risks, see what happens. I live my life by the mantra, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
And Karen, and then we'll come back to Roseanne at the end.
Yeah, I would say embrace it and move forward.
Super. Roseanne?
I think that, you know, one time I was having difficulty with a particular person, and a mentor at the time, you know, she said to me, Roseanne, it's just a conversation, you know, just treat it as a conversation with a person. So, you know, each person, just if, even no matter what's kind of behind it, just treat it as a conversation. So yeah, that's one piece of advice that stuck with me.
That's awesome. Go for it, embrace it, and treat it as a conversation. Great tips, ladies. Thank you. And we're running out of time, so I just want to let people know that Team Discovery is taking notes on the questions, and we will have another session next week, so you can get more of your questions answered. If you do have a few last-minute questions, feel free to type them in to the Ask a Question so that they at least get captured, even though we probably don't have time to address them all. I do want to thank Leslie and Karen and Roseanne for your time with us today. It's been a pleasure to hear from you and to learn from you. I think we've had some awesome stories, and even somebody noted in the chat, this is, you know, very empowering, very uplifting. And thank you for that. Thank you for inspiring more women and men to continue and pursue and be more confident. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.